Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going deep into the world of con artists.
Ooh, exciting.
It is. We're going to be looking at Maria Konikova's book, The Confidence Game.
Oh, fantastic book.
Yeah,
Have you read it?
I have. Yeah, it's a fascinating look at the psychology behind cons and how these con artists can really kind of,
Hook us in, right.
yeah, hook us in. Exactly.
I mean, it's more than just, tricks and deception. It's like they understand something deep about human nature.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Konikova really gets at, right? That it's not just about finding, like a gullible victim.
Right.
It's about understanding how to manipulate perceptions. It's
Mm.
about almost being uh, kind of like an intuitive psychologist.
Oh, okay. So like a dark psychology version of Sherlock Holmes almost.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not just picking anyone. They're picking someone that they can understand and manipulate.
That's a little scary, to be honest.
Yeah, it is a little bit unnerving, but it's also, I think, it's fascinating, right? Because we all make snap judgments about people all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Based on how they dress, how they speak, their body language.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Con artists just take that to like the nth degree.
So they're kind of weaponizing our natural instincts almost.
Yeah, they become experts at reading those subtle cues
Yes.
and then tailoring their approach to match.
So they're not just choosing someone who seems gullible. They're actually creating that vulnerability.
Yeah, they're playing on our inherent need to
Mhm.
trust, to connect with people.
That's a chilling thought, but it makes sense.
It does, and that's what makes it so unsettling. Let's take the case of Sylvia Mitchell,
Oh, yeah, the clairvoyant.
the so-called clairvoyant, right? She
Yeah.
was a master of this, of this put-up, right?
Mm.
That's what Konnikova calls this initial stage
Put-up
put-up,
actor, yeah.
yeah. And she was always impeccably dressed,
Yeah.
radiating this kind of warmth and wisdom, and she deliberately targeted people during moments of vulnerability.
Okay, so when they're maybe more likely to believe what she's saying. Exactly, yeah. Maybe they've lost a loved one or they're facing some kind of major life crisis and they're looking for answers, they're looking for hope.
And she was providing that in a sense.
Exactly. She was providing a sense of hope, a sense of certainty at a time when people were really desperate for
But
it.
it wasn't genuine, right?
Right, it was all a manipulation.
So I guess in a way, con artists are really good at filling a void.
Yeah, they're fulfilling a need, but instead of genuine support, it's just manipulation disguised as empathy.
That's scary.
It is scary. But if thinking about those snap judgments we make, like how do these con artists get so good at exploiting them? Is it some kind of secret skill they have?
Yeah, it feels like there's some kind of dark art to it.
Well, I think some of it is, talent, practice, like any craft.
Right.
But they also leverage like well-established psychological principles.
Okay, so it's not all like smoke and mirrors. There's actual science behind it.
Like take the chameleon effect, for example.
The chameleon effect.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed how when you're like talking to someone you feel comfortable with, you unconsciously start mirroring their behavior?
Oh, yeah. Like if they cross their legs, I might cross mine. It's weird when you notice yourself doing it.
Right. It's subconscious. It's this way of building rapport.
Right.
But con artists do this consciously. So, they'll mirror your posture, your tone of voice, even your word choices.
Wow. To make you feel like you're more connected.
Exactly. Yeah. They create this artificial sense of familiarity and trust.
So they're basically hacking our social instincts.
That's a great way to put it. And it all happens under the radar.
So we don't even realize it's happening.
Exactly. So we don't even realize we're being manipulated. And this sense of familiarity can even be created without direct interaction.
Really? So even if you haven't, talked to the person.
Yeah, yeah. Studies have shown that just seeing someone's face repeatedly, even in a photo,
Wait, seriously? Just from a picture?
yeah, can increase your trust in them later on.
So think about social media then, where we're constantly being bombarded with images of people.
That's exactly, yeah. It makes you realize how vulnerable we are to this kind of subtle influence.
It's a little unnerving, right?
Yeah.
To think that we're being, programmed to trust people without even knowing it.
It is. It raises all sorts of questions about how we navigate a world where manipulation is just becoming more and more sophisticated.
Okay, so we've established that con artists are experts at profiling, mirroring, but let's talk about one specific example that Konnikova highlights in the book. The case of Aunt Nancy.
Oh, Nancy, yeah.
She seems like like the poster child for exploiting trust, especially within like a very specific context.
Yeah, Aunt Nancy is a fascinating case study because she focused on weddings.
Weddings.
Weddings. And think about it, weddings are already like emotionally charged events, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
People are excited, they're focused on celebration, they're surrounded by family and friends.
And they might not have seen some of these people in a long time.
Exactly. So there's already a high level of trust just baked into the situation.
So she's using that existing trust to her advantage.
Exactly. She would show up at the reception claiming to be like a long-lost relative of the bride or groom.
Wait, she just showed up uninvited.
Uninvited. It was incredibly bold.
That's so bold.
It is, right. But because people were already expecting to see like distant relatives that they might not immediately recognize, her presence didn't seem that out of place.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, she would offer to help with wedding preparations, share these heartwarming anecdotes about her nephew or niece, even slip in a few seemingly familiar details about the family that she probably gleaned from, like, the wedding announcement or something.
So she was creating this whole illusion of a shared history, like almost like she was hacking into their memories.
That's a great way to put it. And, our memories aren't always reliable, especially when it comes to emotional events. So Aunt Nancy was able to kind of weave herself into the narrative of the wedding just by using suggestive language and playing on people's existing assumptions.
It's crazy how she was able to pull that off.
It is. It's amazing. And it shows how easily we can be misled, especially when our emotions are running high.
For sure.
And it also speaks to the power of context. We tend to trust people more when they're in a familiar setting, surrounded by people we already know.
So the environment itself becomes part of the context.
You could say that, yeah. The wedding setting provides this, like, sense of legitimacy, a backdrop of normalcy that helps to mask the deception.
Okay, so this is all starting to make sense, but I had to ask, like, what was her end game? Did she just blend in and, enjoy the free food and the festivities? Or was there more to it?
Oh, Aunt Nancy was after more than just a free meal.
Okay, so what was she doing?
She was a master at using this, fabricated familiarity to extract small loans or gifts from these unsuspecting guests. Yeah, she'd play the role of the struggling relative, tugging at heartstrings with these tales of financial hardship.
So she wasn't just taking advantage of the situation. She was actively manipulating people.
Exactly.
That's just cold.
It is cold. But it's a perfect example of how con artists use emotion to cloud our judgment. We feel sympathy for her, we want to help.
Right.
And in that moment of vulnerability, we become less discerning and we're more likely to fall for the con.
It's a good reminder that, even the most intelligent, skeptical people can be fooled.
Yeah.
Especially when someone's playing on their emotions.
Absolutely. We all have vulnerabilities, and con artists are experts at finding them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But don't worry, we're just getting started. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll unpack how con artists escalate the manipulation.
Ooh, can't wait.
By dangling the rope, the promise of something so tempting it becomes almost impossible to resist.
This is getting good. Listeners, you don't want to miss part 2. Make sure you come back for that, and we'll get into the rope and how these con artists really reel us in.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. All right, see you then.
See you then.
So last time we were talking about Aunt Nancy.
Oh, yeah, the wedding crasher.
Right, and it got me thinking, do con artists always target situations like that?
Yeah.
Where there's already...
Like that's existing trust.
Exactly. Or can they, like, create that sense of familiarity even when they're starting from scratch?
That's a great question. And the answer is they absolutely can. Remember, these con artists, they're like students of human behavior, right? They know how to push our buttons, how to make us feel like we already have a connection with them, even if we just met.
This is back to that chameleon effect we were talking about.
Exactly, yeah. Mirroring our behavior to kind of subconsciously create that connection. But it goes beyond just like, mirroring. They're masters of using language, using storytelling to really weave themselves into our lives.
Okay, so like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so imagine you're talking to someone, right? And they just casually mention a book that you've read or a movie that you love.
Right.
Something seemingly insignificant, but it's just enough to create that common ground.
To make you feel like, Oh, we have something in common.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like they're planting these little seeds of recognition, making us feel like we're on the same wavelength.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. And they're incredibly observant. They pick up on those little details we reveal about ourselves,
Uh-huh.
our hobbies, our worries, our aspirations. And then they use that information to build a narrative that resonates with us.
So it's not just mirroring behavior, it's like mirroring our identity
You
almost.
got it. Yeah. It's all about creating that emotional resonance. And once they have that, that's when they can really start to reel us in.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. Konnikova calls this next stage the rope.
The rope. Yeah.
So tell me about the rope. What's that all about?
The rope is basically the promise of something so enticing, so irresistible,
Okay.
that we're willing to kind of overlook, ignore those red flags.
So what kind of things are we talking about here? Like what kind of bait are they using?
Well, the rope can take many forms. It could be the promise of easy money,
Oh, okay.
a cure for chronic illness,
Right.
even a chance to reconnect with a loved one who's passed away.
So they're playing on our hopes, our fears, our deepest longings.
Exactly. And it can be pretty cruel.
It sounds pretty cruel.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
But remember, these con artists, they're skilled manipulators.
Right.
They know how to identify our raw, unmet needs and craft a narrative that speaks directly to them.
So how does this play out in like real life? What's an example?
Okay, so let's think about Sylvia Mitchell again, right?
Okay.
Her rope was the promise of spiritual guidance, healing.
Right.
She targeted people who were hurting, lost, searching for meaning, and she convinced them that she could remove negative energy, cleanse their auras, even reconnect them with loved ones who had passed away.
So she's providing a sense of peace, closure in a time of like intense grief and uncertainty.
Exactly, yeah. And she was really good at creating this sense of ritual and ceremony, making her clients feel like they were part of something special, something bigger than themselves.
Right, right. It's like they're almost like directing a play
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it, yeah.
with us as the unsuspecting stars.
Exactly. They're not just selling a product or a service, they're selling an experience, a feeling.
Okay.
And they're masters at using psychology to make that experience feel real, even when it's completely fabricated.
That's pretty messed up.
It is. But okay, so that's an example of a rope that targets, our emotional needs.
Yeah.
But what about cons that are more financial in nature? What does the rope look like in those situations?
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, in financial cons, the rope is often like this can't miss opportunity.
Right, right.
So think about those classic pyramid schemes or investment scams.
Oh yeah, those get rich quick schemes.
Yeah, exactly. They prey on our desire for wealth, for security, promising incredible returns with little to no risk.
Which we all know is too good to be true.
Right. But logic often goes out the window when we're presented with, a shortcut to our dreams.
That's true.
Con artists know this. They use impressive jargon, fake testimonials. They might even have like elaborate websites, marketing materials
To make it all look legit.
to make it seem legitimate. Yeah.
Right, right.
And they might name drop influential people or claim to have inside information.
To make you feel like you're special, like you're part of this exclusive group.
Precisely, yeah. And that feeling of being in the know, it can be really intoxicating.
Right, right.
It makes us feel special, intelligent, even superior.
Like we're smarter than everyone else
Right,
who hasn't
like-
caught on yet.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful motivator. We want to belong. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And con artists, they exploit that desire.
Yeah, it's amazing how they can twist our deepest desires against us. Like they take something positive, like our ambition
Mm-hmm.
or our desire to help others,
Yeah,
and they just weaponize it.
that's a good point. And it reminds us that manipulation can be incredibly subtle, insidious. It doesn't always involve like threats or coercion.
Right, right.
Sometimes it's about appealing to our best instincts, our most vulnerable desires.
And using that against us.
And using that against us, yeah, to serve someone else's agenda.
This is getting a bit heavy.
Yeah, I know.
'Cause it's also super fascinating,
It is.
Like we're peeling back the layers of human psychology, seeing both, like the good and the bad.
Yeah, that's the beauty of exploring the psychology of the con, right? It's not just about learning how to avoid being scammed. It's about understanding ourselves better, the forces that shape our decisions.
Okay, so we've seen how con artists use like mirroring, storytelling, emotional manipulation to create that sense of trust and familiarity.
Yeah.
And we've seen how they dangle the rope,
Right.
that promise to kind of reel us in.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's more to the story.
Oh, there's definitely more. We've only just scratched the surface. In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to delve into the most insidious stage of all,
Oh, okay.
the tail.
The tail.
This is where the con artist really solidifies their control, drawing us deeper into their web of deception, making it almost impossible to break free.
Oh, I'm already hooked. Listeners, make sure you come back for part 3 because this is where things get really juicy, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to be unpacking the tail and how these con artists really cement their control over us.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. See you then.
See you then.
Okay, so we're back, and we're about to delve into the deepest, darkest layer of the con, the tail.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
You said last time that this is where the con artist really solidifies their control.
Exactly.
Like they've set the stage, they've gained our trust, they've, dangled that rope.
Right, they've got us hooked.
Yeah. So what happens next? What is the tail?
Well, think of it like this. The tail is the final act of the play, right? The con artist has got to make us believe that their fabricated reality
Oh,
is the only reality that matters.
so it's more than just telling a story. It's like creating a whole belief system.
Precisely, yeah.
Wow.
The tale is a carefully constructed narrative that reinforces everything the con artist has already done, right? It's designed to answer any lingering doubts,
Okay.
justify any inconsistencies, and ultimately, convince us that we're making the right decision by trusting them.
So it's like they're creating this alternate reality
Exactly.
where their version of events is the only truth.
It's a total rewriting of our perception of reality.
And how do they do that?
Well, they do it by appealing to our emotions, our biases, and our deeply held beliefs. Right?
So it's not about logic and evidence.
No. It goes way beyond that.
It's more primal almost.
Exactly. The tale, it bypasses our rational mind
Right.
and goes straight for our emotional core. It plays on our fears, our hopes, our insecurities.
Oh, I see.
And it often reinforces existing prejudices or stereotypes, right?
So it's tapping into things that are already there.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. I'm starting to see how insidious this can be. But can you give us some examples? Like how does the tale actually play out in different cons?
Sure. So let's go back to Sylvia Mitchell, right?
Okay.
The clairvoyant. Her rope, remember, was the promise of spiritual guidance and healing.
Right.
But to really solidify her control, she needed a tail
Okay.
that explained why her methods were so secretive, why she needed large sums of money,
Right.
and why her clients sometimes didn't see immediate results.
Because if you have these like supernatural powers, you got to explain why they don't always work.
Exactly right. So Sylvia would weave these elaborate tales about ancient curses,
Okay.
powerful negative energies, even jealous rivals trying to sabotage her work.
So she was creating these like external threats, these invisible forces, to explain away any inconsistencies
Exactly.
or failures.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And because her clients were already so emotionally invested,
Yeah.
they were primed to believe it
Oh, absolutely.
because they wanted to believe that she was the only one who could help them.
Yeah.
It's like she was turning her clients into like co-conspirators almost,
You got it.
making them feel like they were part of this secret world.
That's a key aspect of the tale, right?
Okay.
Creating the sense of us versus them.
Right.
Reinforcing the idea that the con artist is on our side.
Right. Fighting for us
Exactly.
against some external enemy.
Exactly.
It's a brilliant way to solidify loyalty and silence any doubts.
Oh, it's incredibly effective.
And you said it's not just limited to these kinds of like spiritual cons, right?
Right, like in financial scams, for example. The tale might involve complex explanations about market fluctuations,
Okay.
government regulations, or even conspiracies to keep the average person from getting rich.
So it's all about creating this smoke screen, this like alternate reality that justifies their actions.
Exactly, yeah.
This is a lot to take in, to be honest.
I know, it's heavy
It's
stuff.
pretty mind-blowing, but it's also a bit disheartening, you know?
Uh-huh.
If con artists are this good at manipulating us, is there any way to protect ourselves?
Absolutely there is. Awareness is key, right? The more we understand the psychology of the con,
Okay.
the better equipped we are to spot those red flags.
So knowledge is power.
Exactly.
What are some like practical steps? Like what should we be looking out for?
Well, first and foremost, be wary of anyone who tries to create a sense of urgency or pressure.
Okay.
Con artists, they thrive on our impulsive decisions, right?
Right.
So they'll try to rush us into making commitments.
Before we've had time to think.
Exactly.
So like those like limited time offers,
Yeah.
it's all designed to short circuit our rational thinking.
Make us act on emotion.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so if someone's pressuring you, take a step back.
Take a step back, yeah.
What else?
Be suspicious of anyone who promises something that seems too good to be true.
Okay, that's good advice, but it's easy to forget.
It is. It is. But con artists, they're masters at exploiting our desires, right?
Right.
So they'll often dangle something that appeals to our deepest longings.
So we have to be extra careful.
We do.
Trust our gut.
Exactly.
If something feels off,
Yeah, trust your intuition.
it probably is.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Absolutely.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Seek independent advice.
Yes, all of that.
Okay, this has been a lot.
I know, it's a lot to process.
But it's also been incredibly fascinating,
it is.
to kind of go deep into this dark side of human psychology.
Yeah, it's a bit unnerving.
But it's a good reminder that even our greatest strengths,
Ah,
our empathy, our trust,
can be turned against us.
if we're not careful.
So we have to stay informed, be critical thinkers,
Absolutely.
and always, always question our assumptions.
Well said.
Listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive
Yeah, thanks for listening.
into the world of con artistry. Stay vigilant, stay skeptical, and remember, the best defense against manipulation is a well-informed mind.
Absolutely.